Okay, people joining this live stream. I seem to be live streaming my whole afternoon here. I just spent a bunch of time telling stories about the history of science and technology. And here we are back at my day job, working on language development for Wolfram language. So we have a variety of topics here. Unicode characters via the ICU library. Okay, what is all of this?
Nick? Yeah, so we're basically running through, we have been using the ICU libraries for some utilities in Wolfram language for a while now, and I was working with Francisco and Danielle on trying to inventory what things are in the library that we don't currently have in Wolfram language, and Danielle pointed out that this ICU character data function repository function is kind of a template of taking some existing functionality that exists for analyzing and getting information about characters that we don't entirely have in the language right now. And I think some of the utilities probably belong in our character name function. Some of them probably go into the entity domain character as additional properties, and some of them may be worth having as standalone functions or integrating elsewhere. But
okay, let's take a look.
Broken down here.
Have you got proposals for these things?
Yeah, so in the agenda, basically the library supports 3 name properties. We already have the primary one, which exists in character name as Unicode name. It gives the formal Unicode name. But there's 2 extensions to that ICU provides. One is a name alias, which basically is a special case for some inputs that have either formally been given other names in the past, or there may be...
Well, we would normally call that alternate names in our system.
Yeah, and there is an alternate name property in character data or the character domain in entity, but it doesn't necessarily account for these. Some of them are basically errors in the past in Unicode that have been corrected. And there's also, we could basically extend this in alternate names for the entity domain, and the extended name is a naming scheme for handling unnamed Unicode character spaces, so things where there isn't a formal Unicode name, but there's basically a schema for naming either white space characters or other characters.
Well, but also there may be, in private Unicode space, there may be companies.
Right. That was going to be my first question, which is, what does this do in the PUA?
What's PUA?
Private user area. So if you give it, right, this WFR function does this already, right? So, or does it not?
The WFR function isn't published, I think, primarily because it only runs on Linux right now. Maybe, Daniel, you can jump in here, or...
Well, that's a bit of a problem.
It's why it's just a template ref page at the moment. But...
Okay, so we can't find out the answers to these questions, but I would be curious, like if you gave it like
I can run it in. You need me to run this in Linux? I can run this in Linux.
It returns private use area character -- So
okay.
Yes.
Okay. But look, what you're saying is, the fact that there may be error bad names, why don't we just put that in an alternate names bucket? That's what we do elsewhere.
Yeah, I think there is a space to put that in character data in entity value. I don't know if there are other cases I'm missing on name aliases here, but that was the primary use case that I was aware of for it. So
right,
it may be redundant there, and I don't know if the extended names would just be another instance where we'd want to have those as alternate standard names.
Sorry, the name which as alternate standard names. So this is apparently what it does. Yeah, it's pretty boring. You might want something where we query: is it a private use thing, or is it, is there a notion in Unicode of it's a public use or private use? Just essentially that Boolean. And I don't know for the extended Unicode stuff.
Well, I think I think there are at least 3 categories you'd want there, right? You'd want public, private, and unassigned.
Okay. Well, fine. I mean, Unicode status or Unicode okay. Let's non-missing property association. What is this?
So this is just giving a sample of what the existing character domain and entity value populates. And then
I didn't know we had glyphs. So if I say, really, I can do this. If I say something like, like my favorite Greek character, say, oops, glyph of that. Wowee, I had no idea. So if I say graphics of that, wow, cool. What font are these things in?
Francisco, do you happen to know?
I don't remember. Yeah, I'm not sure if we populated that for all the letters, but yes, it's something we have for at least for this graphical. Yep.
Oh, those are characters. Yeah, okay. So they render like that. Why do we not, given that we have the glyph, why don't we have an image as well? Just a canonical image.
In which font that would be?
Well, what font is this?
This, okay, the same. Right.
Splatteroo, what happened here? An error of unspecified nature.
Yes. So you created an invalid Unicode character, an invalid code point. Not all values below 65535 are valid because they might be half of what's called a surrogate pair. So if you've managed to create half of a surrogate pair, and
why does it pink? Why would it not just have a blank box or something there?
Because that's a very hard problem to fix. Because there's no way to transmit it because it's not valid Unicode. So basically, once we extended beyond the basic multilingual plane, we had to, start using more robust Unicode transfer encodings, and there's no way to validly transfer this half of a character. So we're agreed that there is a problem to be fixed here. It's just not an easy problem to fix.
Why is it that when I do copy paste, it's not copying anything? I'm going crazy. I'm copying that and I paste it and it's blank.
Probably because of the bad character.
Oh, but I mean, I'm copying it into another application. Can somebody capture this, please?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Well, that's funky.
And there's a bug report about this. The problem is it's hard to fix, and it would require, a fair amount of coordination between me and John. And so,
Okay. Well, fine. but I mean, it's the fact that it's actually a syntax error is very curious. But now those question marks there. So, what's happening? Oh, that. That's very, very civilized. Okay, by the way, do we have any control over how that question mark thing is rendered?
I don't think so, but that's a question for John.
Okay, if somebody could ask that question, if we do have control, we should think about a different design. But if we don't have control, then there's nothing we can do. Okay, so what are the questions here? Examples of existing data. Okay.
Yeah, and so this is basically just looking at the properties that are in ICU character data. Some of them, like block, is a property that already exists in character, but combining classes, direction, and writing script aren't. They should probably be populated there.
Yeah, they should be.
And then there's a handful of predicates that are on the function resource page that I don't know if they should be folded in. Fold case is kind of an interesting case of, if it's uppercase, switch to lowercase. If it's lowercase, switch to upper.
Right.
And the difference between title case and uppercase is a little interesting.
Well, what are the cases where that one, I mean, which characters distinguish those?
Right. Well, I mean, there is another question here, right? Which is that we use PCRE's definitions of these things for all of our actual string processing functions. So do we want to introduce a second, possibly distinct definition for all these things?
What do you mean?
I mean, we have lowercase character, right? And whatnot. As right.
I thought we did our own. I mean, lowercase character Q. Lowercase q, rather. And if I do that for... Okay. Okay. So I thought we had our own tables for lowercase q.
Which are based on the PCRE tables. I mean, we have the PCRE tables to which we have added our private use characters, but this is still all based on PCRE.
Okay. But so, and you say that doesn't agree with the ICU?
I don't think in all cases. I
When
think
we
there are
check.
bug report.
Yeah, we should check. But so without knowing what the disagreeing cases are, I don't think we can say much more about it. If we knew what they were, we could understand why they disagree. I mean, maybe, who knows, maybe it's real world politics that's making them disagree. I have no idea. Okay, the mirror image character equivalent. That's kind of interesting. I mean, if they have it, we might as well have it. Paired bracket, we might as well have it. Makes sense? I mean, guys, Nick?
So you say all these should be properties in character data,
Yes.
in the character entities.
Yeah, why not? Nick?
So
is
yeah.
Nick here?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, I mean, I think basically I wanted to sort out, some of these are things that should be inserted in character data. We can probably, there's a big table of predicates right after that could be in character data. I don't know if any of them, some of them exist as standalone functions. I don't know that, illegal Q is obviously not going to be a function on its own, but illegal character Q or character code might be useful, or if there's a mirrored character, these could basically all just get pushed over into character data, but I didn't know 100% if that's where we want everything to end up and just say we're aligning these, and where there's differences between PCRE and ICU, we'll have to evaluate them on a case-by-case basis.
So what is illegal character Q? Like, how would that even be useful?
Well, it's one of the characters
cases.
that pinked it.
Right.
Oh, right, but okay, fine, but you can't. I mean, I suppose that exists in the kernel, but there's no way. Currently, there's no way to type that character into a front end and get it all the way to the kernel. I mean, this quote unquote character.
By the way,
If
illegal.
you're importing something, maybe you get this kind of characters.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, well, I don't think we should be dealing with that until we decide the more general issue of how we're dealing with these characters in general in the language.
Right, fine. But now, the question of whether if Unicode itself defines something to be uppercase or lowercase, I think it might be interesting to have a property like Unicode lowercase q. But see, we don't have any q things, and do we? In the case of a character entity.
No, we don't have any of these Q properties.
None of these am I jumping up and down and saying how excited I am about them. By the way, is this not working across platform because we need a compiled binary to be able to access the library?
Yes.
Okay, well, so fine. So that there are known solutions to that using library link and etc. We should use them.
Mhm.
Okay, what are you guys suggesting here? As far as I'm concerned, adding a few from here makes perfect sense to me. Adding the ones like mirror image character, paired bracket character, and so on, those all make sense to me.
And Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but we do currently already link ICU directly into the kernel, right?
Yeah, we do. And
right. So then So then the correct solution is you write the MC code to access the additional stuff. I mean, I don't
and
see
make
why
it
we
a
need
subterranean function which can be exposed in the function repository.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Okay. So I think that's what we should do there.
Yeah, so this was basically just part of the effort of delving through everything in ICU and making sure we're taking advantage of the things that are there and not just leaving low-hanging fruit. So, excellent.
Are we? I mean, okay, we got function repository things, but I'm curious what Earth rotation data is.
I mean, we have 12 more functions to go in the Wolfram function repo collection, and we have Danny and Rick for that discussion here.
Okay,
So
well, fine.
I think,
But what are the solar time things? What are those? Are those easy to discuss?
I think so. I have some questions there about naming. So these are half-baked functions, so they are still much under progress, but there are some naming decisions to make, more particularly in the other one, in Earth rotation data, which actually now I will be suggesting we call it Earth orientation data, to be more general.
That seems very, very obscure. I mean, just as a name. Okay,
I mean,
so
yeah. So these. Okay, so should we go to this one? So the idea is that there is this organization, the IERS, International Earth Rotation Service, and they are monitoring everything that relates to the orientation of the Earth with respect to the celestial reference system. And they have very, very interesting information, like the duration of the Earth, how the rotation pole is moving on the Earth, everything related to the various time systems, etc. So it's very interesting information and fundamental for work in astronomy. So there are many properties, and there are things like you see these differences of time, how to name those, or
the real question that I have is, how long is it before we also need moon rotation data?
Well,
I think we should not worry about it. I think it'll be a long time before anybody cares about this for something other than the Earth.
I've seen papers discussing the same problem with Mars already, but not for other planets. So if you want to have an observatory there, you really need to have control on your moving frame.
I see. So if there's an observatory on the moon, people will care about it then.
Exactly, because if they need to know the orientation of the moon with respect to the stars in order to point a telescope.
Right. It would be lovely if the name doesn't have Earth in it. But I mean, where we could have like geo.
Terra?
No. But I mean, when we say geoposition, and we can say moon, we're okay. Geo might mean the Earth, but it's okay. It's not totally crazy. Geo rotation data, or is it astro rotation? No, it's too weird.
So the main parameters here, which are 5, they are always called Earth orientation parameters. That is standard nomenclature. That's why.
I see.
And this is truly about the Earth at the moment. But yes, so.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a long time before it's about anything else. But
geo-orientation data could be. Geo-rotation I like less because I was planning
it's
to
not
have
really rotation, actually. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was planning to have a geo-rotation function at some point that performs rotations of polygons on the surface of the Earth.
You mean about some point? Like rotate the US around New York or something?
For example, so the general rotation has 3 parameters.
But on the surface of the Earth, it has only one.
Well, it's 2. As you said, you specify the point and the angle of rotation around that point. So you have 3 freedoms.
Okay. So it's basically like a rotation in the plane. Why isn't it the same as rotation in the plane? I mean, except it's applied to the geoid.
Well, because you have to apply it on a curve on the ellipsoid, so it's non-trivial.
Right.
But if you want, for example, to compare two countries superpose one on top of the other, then you need to perform a rotation so that one goes on top of the other.
I would have thought we should take out, rotate, translate all those operations and simply have a way in which those can be done in a geo situation. Because I can see those functions being also useful at some time in the future when we have a representation of some random algebraic surface or something. You know, translate this triangle around this weird algebraic surface.
But no, those functions are very tied to flat geometry. I don't think we can generalize them to other cases.
Okay.
I mean, on the Earth already, the concepts of rotation and translation are merged. The translations should be infinite. Sorry.
What do you mean? Translations are not? Isn't that our geo? What is it? Geo direction and so on.
Geo displacement. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. But that's displacing. I mean, you can displace all points in the same direction, but they are not going to be.
I see. There's no parallelism.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
You made that with something much smaller, for example.
I kind of favor geo orientation data.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Seems that about the right level of technical.
Mm-hmm.
And so solar time goes along with like Unix time and absolute time and all those kinds of things, right?
Sidereal time.
Sidereal time, yeah.
Sidereal time is already a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if I say now minus...
there is an example that I think in the page that we'll explain. So sidereal time is a quantity, it's an angle. So both solar time and sidereal times are actually angles, are angles of rotation.
Right, relative to whatever the first point of Array is, or whatever the crazy thing is.
Exactly. Sidereal time is rotation with respect to the stars. Solar time is rotation with respect to the sun.
Yeah.
Which is important.
It's unfortunate that we call it time, and yet it's an angle.
It's the tradition, yes.
I mean, if I say unit convert that to degrees.
Yep. Angular degrees. String.
It'd be nice if I could just say degree, wouldn't it?
Not really, because degree is a number.
I see. This is a unit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So solar time.
It's the same thing. It's an angle. It's the angle I was trying to.
But it will be written in.
Yep.
Right ascension or whatever this is, or something.
Exactly. So look at the first basic example of the page.
I see. So it's off by only a little bit from GMT.
Exactly. I think the maximum is about 16 minutes. Sorry. No, I'm saying this wrong. So once you take into account time zones, there are places in West China which are displaced almost 4 hours. But when you compare solar time to the correct time that you would have there with your proper time zone, then it's much smaller.
Well, right. If the time zone was allocated correctly, it'll be plus or minus an hour.
Exactly. Yeah. So here in Champagne, we happen to be very, very close to our proper time zone, and that's why it matches so nicely.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, this looks like a fine function, so it'll be location and date. Yeah.
Exactly. We have the precedents for. So the interesting thing here is that there are two concepts of solar time. There's what's it called, apparent time, and another one, mean time.
Yes.
And so here I'm suggesting a method option, but in some other functions we have had a string as an argument. So I'm not sure. We need to do the same thing for sidereal time. It also has two versions, mean and apparent.
Local mean time. What is that? What is the?
So the apparent time is the time that you see when you look at the sun, or the sun. The time that a sundial would give you. That is a true. It's also called true time, true solar time. But that is changing inhomogeneously. So what they have done is to compute a mean, an average. It's like a fictitious sun that moves at constant speed through the sky.
Yes.
And that's what is called mean time, mean solar time. And that M is the M of GMT.
Right. Well, I mean, but those are really very different things. I mean, to me, it seems like it's a pity we can't just say solar time of mean time type thing to get that. Because it feels like it feels more than a method option.
Mm-hmm. We could have a string. For example, we do something similar in Julian date, in which there's a string at the beginning specifying the type of Julian date.
I see. Oh, I see. So we do this. Well, then we should do the same thing for solar time. This hackaroo where we have either a date or a string as the first argument.
Do you prefer that?
I think so. I mean, from what I understand of solar time and the significance of mean time versus other things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those are those ones. Cool. All right.
Okay.
Do we have to, for geo orientation data?
So I would like one particular question. So you see in this table of properties, there are these differences of time, and those are fundamental. So, I mean, is it possible to have this minus there, or should I write minus?
Well, how do people usually write it?
With a minus, yes. They say this is tie minus ut1. But of course, here we have a string, which is a bit odd.
Yeah, I understand. I'm not a big fan of the minus in there. Mm-hmm. I mean, we could say tie ut1 difference. Mm-hmm. It'll look a little bit funky though, because that will all be.
Yes, and it's a bit ambiguous. What do we mean by difference? In which order?
Oh gosh.
So I mean, we can write minus in between, right, like that.
I would kind of prefer that. By the way, can we return? Oh, I see. TAI. Eventually, we'll have a function that returns the UT1 time, right?
So what we are going to have is data object taking a time system, which is this TAI, UT1, UTC, etc. And then data object will report the right time.
I see. So eventually I will be able to say TAI, I'll be able to compute that difference explicitly by a difference of data objects. Is that true?
No, because data object is absolute. Data object of the same time. So how to say? If you put the same date list in the first argument of data object, then yes.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But if you say data object of now, comma, time system goes to something, minus data object of now, time system goes to something, that's the same now. So that should report 0. You see
Right.
the difference?
Yep, I see what you're saying. Right, but otherwise, it's like there is a deformation given this in this coordinate system. 3 means something different from what it does in that coordinate system.
Exactly. And the difference is this thing that we are reporting there.
Right, and the return value, the conceptual return value of data object is an absolute time that is relative to whatever it's relative to, but it will be absolute for both of them, and so it will report the genuine difference.
Exactly.
Right. Comment on our live stream that the Indian system is lunisolar calendar. Yep, we know all about this. Can we show off and do, what can we do? Calendar data of what kind of calendar do we want here?
Yeah, we have the no. That's not the. So what we want here is data object of calendar type goes to how's it called, Nick? Indian.
The modern Hindu.
Oh, yeah, exactly, modern Hindu.
It's not auto-completing, guys.
That got fixed just recently. It was in the queue for autocomplete. Or modern Hindu lunisolar.
Lunisolar.
Yeah, because there's a solar version too.
I think it's with lowercase s.
There you have it. 1472, 2077. Wow, what happened in okay, let's not go there. 77 BC or something. Is that a notable time? I have no idea. Go ahead.
Yeah, there must be something, but
okay. Looking good. Looking really good. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So if you go down some examples, there are really interesting. Interesting on the duration of a given day or. Yeah, there's some plots. It's truly interesting.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay.
So that's milliseconds.
How far back does this go? When the atomic clocks were invented, probably.
Exactly, in the 60s. But then there is inferred data from eclipses going thousands of years back.
Right. How are we dealing with that? What?
Yeah, we have interpolating functions.
But so if I ask for this, so
here in these examples, I don't have much going back, but I do have the data. And this is what the pole is doing, what the rotational pole is doing around the geographic pole. It's moving a few meters.
What units? Oh, those are meters.
Yep.
Okay. Question, do we support metric time? What is metric time? Some Napoleonic invention?
Metric time? We do have the French calendar.
Right, with 100 days or something, whatever it is, 10-day weeks.
Exactly.
Unless they mean Battlestar Galactica centons and such. I mean, that was a metric time system, but
but not for the Earth, I would imagine. Okay, this is really nice. Okay. So let's go on with the function repository review.
Yep.
Okay. This is a metric time of 10 hours per day. Brilliant. I don't think. Show me who cares, and then we'll decide whether, I mean, maybe good function repository function. Okay, let's take a look at these. We have copy to clipboard.
Yes, no, that was me trying to test what this function does.
I see, but we don't have copy from clipboard, which is what this is.
Right. So apparently we
Are
have
you
paste.
sure?
We have paste, which is able to place the content as new input, but nothing that returns as output, I think.
I see. Well, it seems useful to me. Seems quite useful to me.
Mm-hmm. Do it again. This worked for me before. No, do copy to clipboard and then no, evaluate your own.
What do I need to do?
Okay, and then is that an expression or is that a
Yeah,
what is that?
Should be a string.
Right.
So it's always just a string.
Look, really, this should be something like clipboard import. I mean, because what you're going to want to do with the clipboard, where would you use this? You would use this if you're interacting with an external program, and it says, go ahead.
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
I'm not sure when you would use this. I mean, right? I suppose you might in certain user interfaces, right? You might say, copy what you want to the clipboard and then click here for the next step.
Mhm.
But right, and then I guess it's not so clear if you want it as a string or as.
Well, I don't think you
as
want it as a string. I
expressions.
think you want a more complicated thing, because I think the clipboard, if it's genuinely the clipboard, contains all kinds of other stuff like the HTML version of the clipboard and so on.
Right. I think clipboard import will be nice in the sense of, for example, a use case I had yesterday. I had a table in some Excel, and I wanted to copy that into Mathematica. So I could copy, then it was a string, and I could do import string of this as table. But clipboard import directly from what is in the memory and put as format table, for example. That would be nicer.
You mean if right, but one thing is to pick up the non-string version of what's on the clipboard. Do you understand what I'm saying? The operating system lets you do that, to make an association or to say clipboard import, and then to say, because there's an HTML clipboard. I don't know what exactly.
There is HTML,
Right, and
image,
and of
etc.,
course,
yeah.
right, and of course, if what you copied from is Mathematica, there will also be the true, cell expression or box expression version on the clipboard. Yeah.
I mean, this seems to me, maybe it's more like clipboard data, but the idea of a clipboard, of a thing that can pick up as an association whatever is on the clipboard, seems useful to me. The named, elements on the clipboard. I think that's useful. I mean, we got to ask somebody in a different group how to do this.
Right. I mean, this is not a conversation to be had in detail without John.
Yeah. All right. Image colorize. Well, let's see let me pick up an example here. See whether I believe it. I mean, let's see what it actually does in practice. All right. Here's an example.
You have something in black and white?
I do.
Okay.
I have a good black and white example here. There's our friend Mr. Schoenfinkel and his paper. Let's see what we do. I mean, I would
already have a function that does this or could be extended to do this. I feel like this is, right, like we have image effect. So wouldn't...
There's a function called colorize.
Well, I'm not very impressed with what this did here. What does colorize? Colorize takes... What did that do? It's more attractive than this one. Oh, generates an image from an integer matrix using colors for positive integers and black for non-positive integers. Well, I think there's a clear question of whether colorize
Right, needs an additional method or a method option or something.
or a second argument or some such other thing. But I don't really understand. I mean, this is not impressive, what this did here. I mean, this is a picture of a person. We know that. Very few people are that color.
The examples in the WFR page are more impressive.
Well, the question is what? I have no clue how it, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Let me pick an example. Okay, I'm gonna pick a okay, hold on. Let's say picture of an ostrich. No, what's a good a toucan? How about a toucan? Sure, you have a picture of a toucan somewhere. Who's to know that that was a ram from whatever it is? Okay, how do I do this? Color convert. Is it monochrome or what's it called? Grayscale.
Yeah, grayscale, I think. Yeah.
Okay, toucan in gray. The unexpected species, the gray toucan, which lives in a gray forest. It's been heavily adapted. Never mind. Okay, how does the toucan do? The toucan is now yellow. How did it know it's yellow? How did it know that that toucan was yellow? Okay, give me another kind of creature that's a different color. How about a tiger? No, how about something, how about a gecko? I don't think all geckos, what about a chameleon?
A cuttlefish.
A cuttlefish is a really good idea, yes. But even a gecko is,
That gecko is not green.
not all geckos are green.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point. In fact, I think they vary with the... Okay, let's do this. Wow. Well, I mean, it's vaguely right. I don't know. I mean, you know, let's just see. I just want to wait until it colors a zebra orange or something. Wow.
The green is very impressive.
The green is good. What's a good example? Let's find an example. Yeah, let me just find an example.
Some fruit, something very colorful.
No, I had a different idea. I am going to try. This picture works. There we go. Let's see whether it puts green on the ground. Or red, for that matter. And let's see what it does with the flag. Okay, so it thinks it's in Arizona.
Try a painted bunting.
What the heck is that?
A rainbow-colored bird.
Okay, but anyway, it's not fantastic, but it's not terrible. The question is it actually useful? I'm afraid he lost his colors. I mean, this isn't terribly impressive. Certainly that's not terribly impressive. One would think that was a recognizable image.
Natural things, I mean, I'm always looking at the backgrounds, the green backgrounds, and I'm very impressed by that.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are on green. I mean, it's like, let's see. Okay, so for example, if I take something like this, is it going to successfully figure out that that's blue? I have a feeling, I mean, so what's the use case? Well, so-so. I mean, it had the sky is blue.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't terrible. But what's the use case for this, really?
Well, you take all your old black and white pictures.
Yeah, but I mean, look, in the original case I did here, it failed. Right? That didn't do much.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that seems like a very valid black and white picture of a person. We all know it's a person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, sorry, let me just get, does it have any options or anything? Does it have, I mean, intensity? Oh, I see. It has
Just a wrapper for a net and the neural net repository.
yeah. Where am I putting these?
You have a function repository folder.
Oh, but
I
that's
think so, or like a WFR folder.
Yeah, I think it's a different place. Let's do it. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, it's amusing, and I think we should look at putting it as a second argument of colorize, but that's something for the image processing team, I think. Okay. Oh, okay. Nick is suggesting that in this case, the document on the right might confuse the network. So let's try this. Maybe I will be more sold. Oh, actually, I'm colorizing the colorized image. Not too convincing. It's actually, that's better. That's definitely better. I mean, it's a little bit ghostly, but not terrible. I just don't know what this is. I mean, look, it's an amusing thing for colorize. You know, second argument like, you know, natural or something.
Yeah, it does make sense to absorb this in colorize.
Okay. Boy, these pictures are really big these days. Okay, context module. That's an amusing suggestion from Nick there. I'm just urged to do this just because I'm
So what does that block set $context path to actually empty? Because that would be quite interesting.
What, context path to empty?
Yeah, that I was looking at the next function already.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And an empty context path leads
Let's see how
to
alien poor Mr. Schoenfinkel gets.
Let's just say it's a fun experience or a unique experience. I feel like it reaches a fixed point after like 3 or 4 attempts.
Yeah. As opposed to, just imagine if we put a chameleon in here and it keeps changing color as we keep iterating. Okay. Why is it taking so long to save? My gosh. Maybe these pictures are really huge. Wow. Why is it taking so long? It just seems wrong. Okay. Context module. To unique empty context. To a unique empty context. It means set it to some,
Well, that's context, right? So I presume that means it creates some random context, which hopefully has no symbols in it, but I don't know what it sets $context path to. And
it sets the context path that only includes that unique context.
So not system?
Yeah, not system. So if you have things that are preemptive, like dynamics or whatever, you would want to wrap like preempt protect around this to be safe.
So if I say something like table of this, 3 or something, how does that work? How does the table work?
Because it parses this table before going into it, but if you had like a dynamic something,
right,
in your notebook and it was asking the kernel
at that time.
Yeah, because if the front end preempts the kernel while it's in that context block, for example, it's not going to know how to render the boxes.
There's a comment actually, by the way, from Steve on the live stream about data privacy implications for interacting with the clipboard. Interesting question. I mean, clearly the application can interact with the clipboard and you can just do paste. So at that level, not really an issue. I mean, well, the issue would be if something is stealing the clipboard. I don't think unless the application is in focus, I don't think it can do anything. Oh, I see. What would happen if there was a background job running that says, what's the contents of the clipboard? And it kept on doing that.
Well, there are such things. They're called clipboard managers. And so, it'll do whatever it does to the clipboard. Some are more elegant than others.
No, but I'm asking the question. If there's a clipboard import and I can simply have it running on my machine, just like I have a keylogger running,
mm-hmm.
I would I could just ingest and, I could ingest the content of the clipboard at any time without me knowing it.
Right. Well, the contents of your clipboard, right? The clipboard is a per user.
No, I understand. But if I have a background job running, if I start a Wolfram engine on my computer, right, I just go to
Sure. And yes, and it would just grab it whenever it executed, no matter whether it was the foreground processor or not. And that might have consequences for what's on the clipboard.
Why would it have consequences for what's on the clipboard? I mean, so if I go here and I say, in here, I say resource function clipboard content, okay? And I say in here,
well, that certainly won't do anything in a standalone kernel, right? Because it's not connected to any front end, and it's not connected to the right. So you could try it inside of using front end.
In here.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't understand why this didn't work. I mean, in other words, there's a global clipboard in the operating system. So this process, this background process, should be able to grab whatever is on my global clipboard, right?
It uses clipboard notebook, so it's specifically a front end thing.
Okay, right. So if it needs
what is clipboard notebook?
I don't think it's actually documented. but it's something you can do notebook get on it, and it'll give you a notebook corresponding to the clipboard.
Oh, it is documented. No, it's not documented. Clipboard notebook.
With no arguments, and then if you did notebook get on that, that's what clipboard content is processing.
Okay. So I don't understand what this is.
Well, apparently that's the current content of your clipboard.
Well, this is, but not this stuff down here.
Well, right, it turned it into a notebook, right? So.
Yeah, it's just that. What on earth was that thing?
Oh, right. So it did work inside of the using front end. It's just that, right, the clipboard was still what you thought, I think.
Yeah.
Right. So if you copy something else and now reevaluate in the terminal, hopefully you'll get something non-trivial.
Oh, okay. Well, fine. So let's do this. Oh, you mean, oh boy, are you serious that it was actually that? Hold on.
Right, because wasn't that the last thing you copied? Okay.
Well, that's interesting.
Yep.
How did it say Mathematica? Well, this is a bad pasteboard sync error. Wow. That's
well,
really...
what's dollar installation directory? Maybe you're actually running a Mathematica.
Nope.
Okay, well then
Okay,
that's a bug. That's a bug.
Yeah,
oh,
I
I know because it's probably because it's an assertion failure. So it's just hard coded. Because it's a compile time.
Is pre. Yeah, well, something else to fix. But this is also a very weird bug. Wow, interesting bug. That's kind of wild. Okay, did you get this?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, all right, let's continue here. Context module is not quite making it for me. It's kind of obscure. I mean, should it be making it for me? It seems like it's something that is a story of the new package format, and that needs to be worked out to know what to do with this.
I think in the application section, I put some examples that I think show what it would actually be used for. It's sort of related to the two full string that was looked at already. Just
right. Although, I mean, you can just do that by setting the right options too, right? I mean, you can set context to be always fully qualified.
Look, the other case is something like a form, an external form, where you type in x plus y, it comes in as an expression. The question is, in what context were x and y created? What answers that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Okay, you do a form, you type in x plus y, it's supposed to be an expression. In what context are x and y created?
Some random context.
Yeah, but is it on the context path? So, for example, let me do the following. So let's say I say cloud deploy of form function. X is an expression. And let's say I say, I don't know, derivative of x with respect to x. Okay? Actually, let me not do derivative. Let's do integral because it's going to be, okay?
And did you mean those to be a pound x and then not a pound x?
I do mean that. You'll see.
Okay, well then you'll get 0.
Well, it was not a derivative, it's an integral here.
Well, okay,
so
yes,
x
integral.
squared plus 1 here, right? Submit it. Wow, okay, the expression. Okay, how did that work? How did that work?
I think because in the cloud, it's just global context.
Really? It's not unified?
I think that's something that should probably be done in the interpreter. I think we should allow different forms of expression depending on, either an option or a different named interpreter type that can uniquify or not. Because actually, I'm very glad that that one worked. But okay, so the question here, I don't really understand the use case for context module. And again, I think this is something that should be revisited when we have the new package format. But again, can somebody please make a note of this thing about expression? Could we think about that? Whether expression should have a choice for whether it uniquifies or not? Right, expression unique or something like that.
And about this context model, before we move on a bit, in Alpha, for example, we needed a sandbox evaluation environment, and we created our own function to do evaluations that strip out all the contexts and leave only system and its own context to do get of files, etc., that could create symbols, and then we could remove them. So,
well, I think that's a different sandboxing question.
Right. So I think that's more useful in general to have a way to evaluate the stuff.
Well, I agree. That's basically controlled evaluate.
Yes.
Which is evaluate with only certain resources allowed, like no file access allowed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that will be useful. I mean, that's a long-term project, controlled evaluate, although we have versions of it in the cloud already. Okay, there's a question from Ian on a live stream about any chance of getting 3D animations with Geo stuff. We do have 3D Geo, don't we, coming? Geographics 3D, Jose?
It's in the plans. I mean, we first need to figure out all the vertical datums and various things, but it's in the works.
Okay. I see. So in other words, if you're really close to the surface and you have a geo elevation, well, I'm sure there's an issue of just the simple show me things on the geoid, on the whole geoid, where obviously it's invisible, the geo elevation difference is invisible on the surface, although not for a satellite or something.
Well, there are differences of I mean, the geoid in, I think it's North Atlantic versus Southern India. There are like 200 meters of difference. So, I mean, one has to be careful to not make errors of many meters.
But I mean, nobody can see that on the whole geoid. If you're going to draw the path from, how you get from London to Sydney or something, and on a picture of a globe, you're not going to see that.
Right, but our zero of geoposition 0 is not the same 0 as the sea level 0. So,
I understand that.
So, I mean, it's the sort of thing in which people can get tons of large errors if we don't provide nice ways of specifying what they want.
Yeah, like do they want the actual surface of the geoid at a given place? Okay, so I see. So geoposition in principle should have a third argument. If it says X, Y, and automatic, that means the surface of the geoid at that point.
It's not. It's part of the second. It's part of the datum. So the datum needs to be extended. The datum language has to be extended to support vertical datums.
I see. I bet there's a WFR function we could have right now for globe plot or something, which does the most obvious thing of just putting the things, ignoring the geoid and just putting it on a sphere.
Yes, on a sphere, and yeah, but yeah, of course that would be kilometers of errors.
Absolutely, but it's irrelevant if you're looking at the whole Earth.
Of the whole thing, yes, absolutely, yeah.
Perhaps we should do that. But by the way, are we going to get the analog of geoposition for spheres, like sphere position, sphere distance, and so on, spherical geometry?
We have a ticket for that. I think for me, it's just it's not top of my list of things.
Okay.
But yeah, at some point.
All right. Trace interactive. Well, this is interesting, but I think it seems like a boy. I need to play with this. I have no idea. I mean, the whole story of trace. What is this? Is this you generate the trace and then you look at this?
No, while it's tracing, it stops on each of the points that you give a pattern for, so you can do things like inspect the stack and whatnot.
But so, how does this work?
You're basically in a subsession now. So like if you looked at stack,
Like you evaluated stack bracket.
I think you need to click next. Do a step by step.
Yeah, or you can evaluate things while it's paused like that too, to like get values of symbols or whatnot.
Well, this is interesting. I mean, so what happens in a more sophisticated, what happens if I just do that? I didn't return. I'm dead.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't.
Well, can't you just return at this point? Return bracket?
Oh yeah, that should work.
Apparently not.
Or if you abort, maybe.
Isn't return the thing that tells you to return even from a dialogue? Or am I confused?
It's just beeping.
Okay. Why the beep?
Oh, come on. Why does it always say this? This is something we should discuss in the user assistance meeting. I think the why the beep messages have not been adequately updated over the years. Can we bring that up, please, user assistance? Can somebody look at this?
Yeah, I'll send it along.
All right, well, I'm toast here, so I got to quit the kernel. Fortunately, I already had to kill a giant job that I had running, so.
Well, I think that in and of itself is a sign that certainly the current implementation isn't ready for prime time, even if we decide we like this functionality.
I think the functionality is quite interesting, and I mean, it's part of the whole story of debugging. Boy, okay, there's all kinds. Let's just do a very quick look here, and then I think we have to wrap up. Monitor test report. Well, that seems interesting, but it's a good WFR function. Whether it should be built in.
Oh, I think with the new progress monitoring stuff, it's probably better to just have that integrated in test report.
Sounds right to me. Set context style. Oh, that's interesting. What? Set context style, then what does it do?
So it'll change the style of by default.
Any symbol in that context.
Yeah, so by default it'll be global. That'll make your global symbols appear orange.
I mean, it's interesting. I think there should be some defaults. I've talked about this before from other contexts. I mean, we haven't really done that, of making private contexts a different color and things like that.
Well, automatic is the wrong thing. It should be inherited, but.
Well, I'm sorry. What was that? What was I saying was automatic? No, I'm saying that
I'm looking at the example here, and I'm saying that automatic is wrong. It should be inherited because
I agree. I wrote this a long time ago, and I don't think I knew about inherited back then.
The way you clear a style in the front end is you set it to inherited.
Right, but so this functionality of coloring context, let's bring this up in the user assistance meeting where we've been discussing automatic rendering of context names and things, which I think we should change. I think we should make the context names smaller and things like that, which would make some code where there happen to be contexts a lot more readable. Session information. That's interesting. I mean, system information, it goes along with system information, presumably. If we have system information, why don't we have session information? It's a reasonable point. I mean, how much of the session tab of the option inspector is here? Or is that what this is?
This is just some stuff I handpicked because I was using it for logging stuff in the cloud. So for like an API function, I was just always dumping this to a file so I could check when stuff was going wrong.
This seems useful. I think we should look at this. Who is the right person to look at this?
Oh, I was muted. No wonder you were ignoring me. This seems. I was going to say a lot of this is repeated in system information, and right. I mean, this is, I think, almost entirely a subset of system information. So.
Well, what is there a system information of quote session?
There is not.
Well,
But
maybe there should be. Maybe this is.
but most of this is, first of all, this is mostly kernel, right? So if you look at system information of kernel, I mean, it's much longer, but it includes almost all of that information.
It does include some front end stuff, just because that was useful for my purposes when I made this. But
okay, so the thing would be a system information of quote session that contains a curated list of things of relevance for the session.
Well, what does that mean, right? Dollar version number, like what does? I mean,
I think that's, well, I don't think. Okay, what's usefully session specific? Actually, I'm not sure I know. I mean, when did the session start? Which we don't have here.
I sort of think of this as system information medium, because we have small, which is, very lightweight thing. But
well, then maybe we should add a system information of medium.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think of it as.
Fine. Who's in charge of system information?
Lou.
Okay. I have no opinion about this. Do we have anybody from the geometry team here? I don't know. Whatever they think about this is probably what I think about it. I don't know what this is. Bytes to quantity.
Well, the simplex boundary isn't necessarily geometry, because it can take abstract simplices that don't have coordinates.
Okay, I don't know what this is. I mean, this is finding the boundary of something, right?
Yeah, it's a topology thing.
Well, that's, topology is part of the roadmap for the geometry group. So, I mean, it can't do it for simplex of ABC, can it?
Yeah.
What does it do?
It probably just gives, what does it do?
It's basically, it's like how the boundary is defined with simplicial homology.
Yeah, I mean, you break the thing into...
Right, I mean, I know, but what does it return?
A bunch of line segments.
Oh, okay.
Well, this is interesting and directly relevant to the topology effort. So this is for Charles and Roger. Make sense?
Although I'm not sure why it would be distinct from region boundary if, region boundary could just understand symbolic simplices.
Right. That's why I'm saying it's relevant to those guys, because I don't know beyond that. This seems like a good function repository function. I don't think this is a prime time function.
I was thinking it might be nice to have maybe something in unit convert, like automatic, to just put it in quote nice units.
How do you do that?
We've talked about that. I mean, you'd have to manually wrap it in byte quantity comma bytes first, but we've talked about unit convert having sort of...
Well, that seems like a good idea, but this is something different. This is something which is taking a plain number and converting
right,
it
which is why I'm saying to do it with inside of unit convert, you need to manually wrap it in bytes first.
No, I fully support the idea of having a way to use unit converts to give, sensible, just like we do in Wolfram Alpha, to give all those heuristics about what the right unit modifier is.
And Nick, why haven't we done that?
Because it's complicated for general cases. I mean, we've looked at having a, convert to nice units, but really what you want to do is have some presets of what collections of units you want it to convert to. It's
No, but that's a different issue. Is it kilometers or millimeters?
right. But if you just have a length, if I put in 400,000 feet, we probably want to go to miles. If we put in,
well, no, but what we're saying is, okay, look, there's two different issues. You're going to meters, but you want modified meters. You want
right.
You want some whatever the right term would be,
appropriately prefixed.
Right,
meters.
prefixed meters.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's one thing. You want to go to meters, but what prefix of the meters?
In alpha, we have a thing called unit click that allows you to specify which subset of units you want to choose the best from. But it's slow because it has to try them all to figure out which one's best.
Right, but I mean, in this case, what we would want is something when you're in kilometers and you want to convert it, but it's not appropriate for kilometers. It's really millimeters. And so what we really want is a unit convert of a sort of meta unit that's just called prefix or something that will change the prefix, but you leave the base unit the same. Making sense?
I mean, it's something we've talked about, and edge cases are complicated. Common cases are more straightforward. They're prefixes that are commonly used with some units and not with others.
I understand. We've got a whole set of heuristics that we worked out 10 years ago for this.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know why we wouldn't just use them. I think it's just a design problem. I mean, if we say unit convert, comma, prefix or something, or maybe there's a different
yeah, we've talked about it as possibly going in unit simplify or having a quantity simplify, but yeah, we can spin off another discussion.
Right, and well, right. I mean, I think there is sort of a distinction here between metric units and non-metric units, right? Because with metric
miles.
units,
right, very unlikely to say mega miles.
Right, and also right. So with metric units, right, you could certainly say something like, basic. I don't know what we would call it, right? But basically, you want it to be between 1 and 1,000 with an appropriate prefix or something like that.
Well, look,
right?
we could call it prefixed meters.
Right.
So the main problem in design here is the boundaries. What Ita is just discussing. This is what we always got stuck. Do we want
it's
from
just a
zero?
heuristic.
Time is a good example. Like
it's heuristic, but we want a way of specifying modifications of that.
Tough luck. I mean, look, the fact is people would use this prefixed meters, for example, as a way of...
Or maybe prefixed SI, and then you're getting it as
no,
an
you
SI.
can't guarantee that. You can't guarantee it's the SI, is it kilogram meters per second squared or is it joules?
Right. Okay. But I think well, I think in general.
Go ahead.
Right, but I think with prefixed SI, anything that is an SI unit, right, you get the prefixed form of the correct size. But
no, I understand. But we're saying you're converting a distance to meters. If it's a base SI unit, there's no ambiguity about what the SI unit that comes out is. Length, for example. If it's something like mass length time to the -2, there are multiple SI representations of that.
Right.
But
then we would need one for every single physical. We would need a prefix version of every single physical quantity.
No, every single SI unit. Prefix meters, prefix joules, prefix whatever. That's what.
Right, but then. And so then,
just like we right now.
Right, but what do you do then with compound quantities? So suppose you have newtons and you're converting them to prefixed meters, or like what would you? Or I guess
it wouldn't work. Doesn't work.
And so what does prefixed?
Look,
right. So it only ever works with base SI physical quantities and not with any other physical
No,
quantity?
you're not understanding. Look. If I say here, I'm sure I can say this to gigameters.
Sure.
Okay? And I can say that to, yoctometers. Okay.
Mhm.
So every one of those is a named thing, right?
Yep.
Okay. So what I'm suggesting is that this have an alternative form that says prefixed meters, okay, that is simply automatically picking between yoctometers, gigameters, etc.
Right, but that seems way too limited, because what if I have pounds?
No, it will convert to, look, whatever unit.
Wait. Okay, right, pounds are a unit of force, right? So there is no SI,
No, it'll give a unit error. It will say you can't convert a thing that is
right. But what if I want to, right? I mean,
But then
I'm saying you can only,
different
this only allows you, right? Prefix meters only works with distance, and sure, we could add prefix seconds.
Absolutely, we'd add look, just like
that leaves out 99% of all units, because it's only.
No, listen to what I'm saying. Look,
I have listened to what you're saying.
Okay, you don't write yoctometers. Well, you could. I see. You're saying what if you have yoctometers per second, right?
Or newtons.
No, but then you would have prefixed newtons, and then you'd have picometers or piconewtons or whatever. That's exactly right. You would just do that. Just like you can say.
So every single named unit has a prefixed version?
Yes, because look. Every single SI unit has the actual prefix names built in. See what I'm saying? I can have yoctometers, I can have attometers, I can have nanometers, and so on. Right? So what I'm saying is you take that bundle of whatever they are, 15 of those things, right? And there's an additional one, which is the automatic case, right? Which instead of yoctometers, I just say prefix meters, and it will pick whether it's yocto or atto or whatever.
Okay.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Is that true that we have as a named unit every single prefixed SI unit?
Absolutely.
Nick?
Yeah, we should have I mean, there are also some prefixed non-SI units, like kilofeet is a unit that gets used sometimes, and technically you can combine them, but we could pretty easily at least scan through the unit tables and pick out the ones that have comprehensive SI prefixes and at least have a preset of those. Again, there's maybe a larger discussion to have about defining custom unit clicks for some operation.
That's a different issue, but you're confusing things.
Yeah.
The goal here is to convert 13 feet to something in presumably ordinary meters. Whereas if I said 13 times 10 to the 18 feet, and to convert that to appropriate numbers of, whatever they are, gigameters or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the other case I think people would really like us to handle and it's time units. And
I was going to say also have seconds to quantity on the function repository, which is similar, but it puts things in a mixed.
Yes, well, I think I agree. So we need a named right-hand side for unit convert, which does the right thing. Right?
Well, for appropriate definitions of the right thing.
Okay, listen, it's a heuristic. It's just like many other heuristics. If you don't like the heuristic, you write it explicitly. We don't want a heuristic that has 75 controls because it's not, it's quite easy to write it explicitly. If it's greater than X number of seconds, then do this, otherwise do that. It's not difficult to write that. It will be more confusing to try and tweak some setting for your heuristic. Okay? So, I mean, this is a good idea. This prefix meters thing is a good idea, and we should implement it.
But we already have that somehow, right? In the sense that, for example, I can put unit convert quantity 5 miles to metric, and it will give me kilometers. But if I write 0.00005 miles to metric, will give me millimeters.
Well, then maybe we have this already.
Yeah, it's more limited. The unit systems themselves have preferred units that don't typically include all of the SI prefixes. You can add 400 million miles and it will still try and convert them to kilometers instead of yoctometers or something. But
Well, so look, what I'm suggesting is named things that either do, okay, so there are really two cases here. Give it in the range that is right for the prefix, or give it the way people would actually write it. See what I'm saying? People do not write, you know, yottameters or whatever is not commonly written. People don't commonly write astronomical distances in yottometers, right? Yottameters. But because there's a conventional usage which we have curated, and there is also a theoretical usage based on the ranges for these particular prefixes, right? Both of those are worth having. Does that make sense?
yeah.
And both of those should be a named thing, like I don't know which one is prefixed. This is a Michael Trott question. I'm sure that people in the in the world of unit discussions have got
so in the byte world, how do we distinguish between the
Gibby and Gibga?
Yes,
I haven't a clue. Right, I'm sure there's a way to do it. I don't know what it is. Okay, binary prefixed or something. I don't know.
Oh, no, I like that. Right, binary prefix. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
Which we already have in alpha as a physical quantity system. So, yep.
Right. Okay. So fine. So this is a reasonable direction for these. Okay. I think it's time to. Why isn't this just array flatten? Block diagonal matrix. Why isn't that just array flatten? Okay. Nobody's saying anything, so I'm giving up here.
I think this is just diagonal. It's probably constructible via sparse array.
Right.
Oh, I see. Block diagonal on block diagonal. Sorry, I didn't read it properly. But it's not
right.
It's
yeah, so it's right. So it does the padding for you to rather than you having to manually construct all of the zero matrices. It does it for you.
Okay, somewhat interesting. How can you determine if an expression is a valid UUID? You mean just shape-wise? Yeah, I think there's nobody here to represent these, so I think it's time to wrap up.
Okay.
Okay. Good stuff. Thanks a lot, guys. See you all soon.